Namaskaram, everyone, and welcome to the Awakened Soul podcast, a place where we integrate ancient yogic wisdom into modern living to help ease your spiritual awakening journey. I'm your co host and spiritual seeker, Dr. Crystal Asong.
I'm Dennis DeVos, your co-host as well as a spiritual teacher.
Hi, Dennis. Very nice to see you again. It's nice
Very
to
nice
be
to
back
be
again.
here.
Episode 4 of our podcast
Oh.
episode. Yeah, we've come a long way.
Really nice to be here.
Yeah, and we have another very interesting and big topic to talk about today. And it's something that we hear a lot, especially in the spiritual community. And it's been mentioned countlessly in sacred books, ancient texts, spiritual scriptures, by gurus, yogis, philosophers, and even scientists, right?
Mm.
And it's this one seemingly simple 4-letter word. Can you guess? I mean, you know the answer. But for the audience,
Is it the mind?
yes. People, when we say 4-letter word, people always think it's love.
I was thinking something else actually.
Oh, really? But in the spiritual community, right, the mind is a huge topic.
Right, definitely.
And most of us, unfortunately, we have a love-hate relationship with our minds.
Mm.
Our minds can be, our friend or a foe. And a lot of us, we struggle so much with our minds. It's one of the biggest impediment to our spiritual growth. It's one of our biggest cause for suffering and distraction.
Mm.
In what ways? For example, by having incessant thoughts about the past or being anxious and worried of the future, by relentlessly thinking about things that have happened previously that no longer serve us, or cooking up or coming up with ideas or imagining worst case scenarios that have never happened, right?
Yeah.
And as much as we try to tame and train our mind, it seems like our minds are always on the loose, and we fail countless of time to calm it, to quiet it down, right? And I love this quote by Sadhguru, the famous mystic and yogi, where he says, human beings are the only creatures on the planet that has a very, sophisticated neurological system and also capabilities. And in what sense? We have a fantastic sense of memory and a great sense of imagination. But despite of that, ironically, these two things that are gifts to us as human beings, right? Imagination and memory. These are one of the biggest cause of our suffering,
Mm.
right? And these two things that are seemingly the things that gives us an edge
All right.
over other creatures in the animal kingdom. In your opinion, right, what causes us to struggle so much with our minds?
Mm. Okay. Good to have this question. See, it's the age-old debate whether I want to start with this, right? The age-old debate whether what we call as the mind, is it nature or nurture? Right? A human being, what qualities, personalities, and attributes that he or she possesses, is it nature or nurture? Can you try?
Is it nature or
From
nurture?
a psychological or scientific point of view, which would you say?
To a very large extent, right? I think the majority of population, it would be nurture, right? Things that we learn, accumulate from family, upbringing, friends, social media, and
Right.
so on, so on.
All right, very good answer. So I'll tell you this. Everything that is off the mind, comes from nurture. Nurture means, as far as this conversation goes, we're talking about this lifetime. Everything that has been accumulated, everything that the mind has been exposed to, everything that you have experienced, pick up from the environment, then we say nurture. Okay, this is something that it's not an innate thing. Nature would be innate, that you were
Yeah.
born with it, so as to speak. So for any child, for that matter, when we were born, our minds were empty. In fact, our minds were still developing, right? Arguably, some of it developed, some of it developing, but we were an empty canvas. So how did we come to this when now we're struggling with our own minds? That's your question.
Yeah.
So as Sadhguru said, we've come with the most complex, most sophisticated mechanism, which is the human mind. We've come with this. But the problem is we don't know how to use it. In his words, we have not read the user's manual. Okay.
Mm.
So because we don't know how to use it, it's like you're driving a spaceship. See, when I say spaceship, it's a good analogy because like you're thinking, how does a spaceship look? How does it work? How it's good. We have all these questions because the human mind is actually akin to a spaceship. We are only doing it like a horse cart right now. We are using it like a horse cart. We're dragging it. Or in fact, we're pushing the horse, whatever that means. We're striving and trying to tame the horse. No, but it's actually a spaceship. It can bring you to heights and dimensions that you never thought possible, unimaginable, unequivocal, really. It's very hard to explain, but I'll try my best. The point here is the human mind is something so magnificent. We may even call it a miracle, okay? Because evolutionary scientists will agree that it has taken millions of years. To be precise, about 6 million years it has taken for us to evolve from our very far ancestors, primates, to as Homo sapiens right now. 6 million years. And in the 6 million years of process, a lot has been done to the mind. The brain in particular, but mind is not just the brain. The physical component of the mind, of course, is the brain, but it's also the whole spinal cord and the other bodily systems that combines and converges as what we call as the mind, right? So the mind, the biggest problem is it's not taking instructions from us. Just imagine if your mind were to take instructions from you. Whatever that instruction is, you feed it instruction, you give it a command. It will do accordingly. It will think accordingly. It will act accordingly. No more, no less. Would that be a problem? Naturally, everyone on this planet would give their own minds very wonderful, pleasant, you know, uh, if not conscious, very joyful commands. We would feed it the most beautiful, rhapsodic, just very um, childlike commands. I say childlike as it's not childish. Childlike means very innocent, very joyful, like a child. Oh, I want to play. Oh, let's have this. Oh, let's go. Let's try this. Everything just so spontaneous and innocent and beautiful. Now the problem is the mind does not take instructions from us. Let's face it, our minds. Okay, and it's a big problem. The whole mental health thing, the war that we see in the world. I don't want to be specific, but wars are happening. The war that we see in the world is actually happening in the human mind.
Mm.
Whatever we see manifested in the world right now, all those evils, said evils, they first originated from the mind, the human mind. The animal mind has no war. It only hunts for food. That's all. It only hunts to ensure its survival. It only kills when it has to either protect or to feed itself. But no, we do so much more damage.
Yeah. The thing is, animals, from the moment they are born, they just operate, mostly based on their survival, animalistic, primitive instinct, right? All they care about is sleep, food, sex, etc.,
Reproduction, yeah.
reproduction. But the way that we human beings live and how we are being mastered by our mind, or how we are being enslaved by our minds, right? We are, with all due respect, we're no different than animals, right? Because their consciousness level is to a certain point. But then, as you were saying, one of the biggest suffering in human beings nowadays is because we haven't read their user's manual, and so we don't know how to use
The
our
mind.
mind. Yeah,
Correct.
the mind. It's like, imagine I've never used a camera before,
Right.
right? And then someone gave me a very expensive camera and expects me to operate it.
Right.
Me having no experience about how to use a camera, how to even turn it on, how to,
How to
how,
position
yeah, how
it
to
and all.
position, how it
Yeah.
functions, the intricacies of it, right? Like, what would you expect the result to be? Like, of course it's gonna be either I'm going to ruin the camera or produce a crappy picture or video, or the whole
Yeah.
thing is not going to work, right? Basically, so that's what they're saying. So our mind is akin to that expensive camera.
Yeah, that is a good start. A camera is a good start. Um, I was joking about this the other day with someone, right? They were asking me, how would you describe the human mind? Can I share this?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Right. So I'll say to put it in logical sense, because after all, we're talking about the mind, there needs to be some sense of logic here. The mind is first a camera, a camcorder. A camcorder would be better. Why? Because it captures everything, right? Whatever you pay your attention, whatever you set your sight on, whatever you pay attention to, you capture it, right? So it's a camcorder. The mind is also akin to a computer. Of course, we can add the word super in front, a supercomputer. But for most people, it's just a computer, okay? So computer means it's very intelligent, okay? It processes things very quickly. It does a lot of multitasking, and it has a lot of features, a lot of programs within itself, right? A lot of apps, as we call it. So our minds supercomputer easily, right? We can do so many processes at one time. We can process so many terabytes of information per second, more than giga. We can do crazy amounts of tasks with the mind, supposedly if it's well trained and well programmed. Now, the third C, so camcorder, camera, it's not something you would expect. The third C, what a mind is, as I would describe. Now, this would be more spiritual. A mind is also a cemetery. Now, you will
Symmetry.
be thinking, like, what
Interesting.
device? What other device that starts with a C? Uh, a
Symmetry is a
cemetery.
device.
See, it's because it's all. It's what is a cemetery? Sorry, where all the dead people go.
Yeah.
Okay, so your mind is like a cemetery where all the dead things are buried. Everything that is of the past, you'll find it there. Where else can you find the past? Tell me this. You were saying human beings, as you were suggesting, we are suffering from our own past, right? And we
Yeah.
are suffering from our own future. You were using the words memory and imagination. Isn't memory the past?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember this person told me this. Maybe it was very recent. Maybe it was this morning. I remember last night. I remember 2 years ago. Whatever you remember, it must be of the past. Even though it's 5 minutes ago, it's still the past, right? Nothing wrong about it, but it's still the past, correct? Then future, imagination. Whatever you imagine, because it hasn't happened, so we call it imagination. That's in the future. It may not happen the way you have envisioned or imagined it, right? So you can only suffer two things. One is either the past, which is no longer here in the present, or one is the future, which is not yet here in the present again. So why I describe the mind as a cemetery is because, truthfully, everything that you regard as the past, it only exists in your mind as your memory. Isn't that a cemetery?
Mm.
Dead people, dead things, dead events, things of the past.
Mm.
Okay. So a mind is all three. A camcorder, where the five senses are involved, it captures everything. What you hear, taste, smell, touch, and see. It records everything. Most of it unconsciously. You're not aware of it. But whatever you see, whatever you look, whatever you hear, whatever you smell, everything actually gets recorded. So that's why it's a camcorder. A computer, as I mentioned, in fact, a supercomputer. But the last C, which is the one I want us to talk a bit about, cemetery.
Mm.
Now, do you like going to the cemetery? Just saying.
Um.
I know it's a sensitive question, but do you like going to?
I mean, during my free time, no.
Really? Oh, I thought
No.
during my free
No,
time.
I mean, I wouldn't think about it during my free time.
No,
Yeah.
that's an honest answer. See, any sane person, without reason, wouldn't go to a cemetery,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even though they were someone close to you, someone meaningful to you, with all due respect and love, it's not a place of high vibration, right? It's not a place you go for fun. Maybe once a year, twice a year during certain occasions or festives, you go for certain purposes. That's all, right? Sometimes even, I'm not sure if you're culturally aware of this. We're taught to always bow, always put our hands namaskar when we pass by a cemetery, out of respect, sure. But it's not a place you would want to go voluntarily, so called consciously, so called, out of will, you would go. No. So, if so, now this will sound very shocking. Why are we going to our minds so often?
Mm.
What you call as thoughts, they are just a recycling of memory. And again, memory means the past. Again, the past, as I'm pulling the dots here, connecting the dots here, the past means cemetery. So why do we want to go to the mind so often? So we use it. We use the mind, right? For the first two features, the camcorder and the computer feature, because they're really, really useful in this world. Okay? How successful you are largely depends on the mind. How much you do in this world, how creative, how innovative, how inventive, and there's all sorts of other things that you do in this world. They come from the mind. The technologies that we're enjoying, the advancement of instruments and breakthroughs that we are really as a society we're
Mm.
a part of.
You're talking
And
about the intellect and our
it's coming
rational,
it's coming from the
analytical
mind,
thinking, right?
correct? The intellect, the innovative aspects of the mind.
Yeah.
But we have 40 to 50,000 thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 40 to 50,000 thoughts a day, which mostly we're not conscious about, easily 90% we're not conscious about. So 40, 50,000 a day, 90% will be about, what's the math? 40,000?
Yeah. Close to that.
36,000,
Yeah. Close to
something
that.
like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So 90% of your thoughts are coming up just unconsciously, involuntarily, right? You are not even in control. So those thoughts that are coming from the past is akin, and if you begin to believe those thoughts, if you begin to subscribe to those thoughts, you are living in a cemetery.
Mm.
Really.
And that's the reality of a lot of people, right? They are suffering their past, or basically things that have happened and have happened in the past, but it doesn't exist. I mean, technically, because it's something in the past, right? Or they are suffering things that they imagine would happen or would
Right.
never happen,
Right.
which still doesn't exist.
So you're reminding me of two very interesting words, okay? Especially this conversation with the mind: stress and
Mm.
anxiety.
Stress and
Okay,
anxiety.
these are very interesting
Pretty, yeah,
because
pretty common words.
today stress is synonymous with productivity.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
about you, but where I come from, what I've heard is stress is normal. People are telling me, like even
Oh, I heard
even the
it all
company
the
I've been working
time.
with,
Yeah.
I've been a trainer myself before I ventured into this. They were telling me like, oh, stress is normal. In fact, companies now are teaching you stress management,
Yep.
stress
It's a
coping
big thing.
mechanisms.
Hmm.
Okay, how to breathe, how to sit, how to stretch, how to do certain fun games, team building to so-called reduce stress. Okay, but again, they don't use the word reduce stress nowadays. They should use the word regulate stress. I
Mm.
want to ask you this. I know this human system, particularly regarding the mind, we call it the nervous system, right? It is called nervous system, but it does not mean that you have to be nervous or stressed out all the time. Now people are trying to find, excuses or ways to confirm and affirm their beliefs that, oh, stress is normal because anyhow the system is called nervous system. Someone told me this, right? I was just laughing about it.
In that sense. Okay,
Wow,
okay.
wow. No,
Interesting.
see, do you want stress management or do you want joy management? If there's a choice between these two.
Joy management.
Yeah.
But why do we have to manage it in the first place?
See, you only manage traditionally, all this while, we only manage those things that are very precious to us, of importance.
Yeah.
See, you have to manage your time because it's very precious. In fact, the most
Yeah.
precious thing that makes up your life, which is time. And you don't know when is the final time. You don't know, right? When it stops. So that's why it's so precious. You manage our finances, right?
Yeah.
You manage finances because it keeps you surviving.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps your survival in check. Very important. What else do you manage? Well, if you have a family, you manage them because they're your loved ones. They're very important to you. Your child, your kin, you manage them. So traditionally, we only manage those things that are of utmost importance to us. But today, we manage stress. We manage anger. See, I wanted to see where I think it's just a matter of time before they come up with a program and before it
Wow.
becomes popular, anxiety management, which is a more severe form of stress. Anxiety is just stress multiplied by 10.
Yeah.
So what is this? What is happening to us as a society at large is that um, it's not one person or one community or one company. No, people are populating this idea and then pushing this forth. Stress management, right? And like I said, maybe anxiety management in the days to come. Maybe mental health management.
Mm.
That it's okay to have mental health, but you just have to manage it.
Yeah.
All right.
How did we end up here though? I
Oh
mean,
dear.
it's, as someone looking at it from the outside, it seems pretty crazy, right? Like how all of this has turned out.
So how did we end up here? Because our gaze has been so outward based that we are just focusing on the outside world. And we have lost touch, we've forgotten to tend to this inner world, which is the basis of the outer world. Without this inner world, there will be no outer world. Let's just get clear of this. While we're talking about the mind, without this foundation of well being, let's just say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've had a toothache. Very recently, I had a
Oh yeah,
toothache
I
on
saw your
my
Insta story.
on my wisdom
Your
tooth.
wisdom
It
tooth.
was very painful. Not unbearable, but very painful. So, say you have a toothache, something as simple as innocent as a toothache, because I think all of us would have. You would know better. I think all of us would have a what do you call that? A wisdom tooth, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
by time
You have to pull it out.
we may have to pull it out if
Yeah.
it's distracting or causing
Mm-hmm.
pain. Everyone should have it by right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So something as innocent as a toothache, when it causes you that pain, and it's pretty constant, like if you don't do something about it, right? If you don't take painkiller, if you don't go to the dentist to get it checked and done, it's gonna cause you pain over a few days. Something as innocent as a toothache. In that moment of toothache, whatever on the outside that you're working on, you could be working on an art or on a project, you could be speaking, you could be whatever you do professionally. In those moments of pain, whatever of the outer world does not exist. It means nothing to you, even though it does exist. Technically, it still does, but it means nothing to you because now you're all consumed by the pain. All your attention and your aliveness are consumed by the pain. You would agree?
Yeah.
In moments of intense pain, but something as simple as a toothache. Another example would be a stomachache,
Mm.
maybe food poisoning. Nothing life or death. All right, you'll be fine after 2 days, after a day, if it's minor, right? After some tablets or some purification, some purging, you'll be fine. But in those moments of intense pain, the external will disappear. All you're thinking about is the toilet or something to stop the pain. So what I'm trying to say is what has happened is because our gaze and our attention has been all only outward bound.
Mm.
The materialistic world. Sorry, the material world.
Yeah, materialistic.
I did that
Pretty
on
apt though.
purpose. I did that
Yeah,
on purpose.
yeah, pretty
Okay.
apt. Yeah.
The world itself is not materialistic, it's material, but the people running the world or running after the world has become materialistic. Um, we've lost touch of this and
Mm.
lost sight of this, really, the inner world.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem.
Mm. I want to talk about the ego, because when we talk about the mind, right, it's usually associated with ego. I've been reading spiritual books like Bhagavad Gita, or The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Well, you have done more reading than me already.
I mean, I love reading, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. Anyway, they usually associate the mind with ego. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, right? How do they relate? Can you share more about this?
So ego has a very negative connotation, especially in the spiritual, you know, worldview of things, because ego means there is this I or me at play, right? This I or me is taking center stage. So there's a very distinct character or personality that we call I or me, followed by your name, whatever your name is, whatever whoever you think you are, right? So this ego, once it takes a certain form, a more personified form, then really it would be a very big menace in the spiritual context of things, undoubtedly. But I want to just take a different route talking about the ego. Ego by itself, there's nothing wrong about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's just look at it this way. See, right now you are a trainer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Professionally, you are also an aspiring coach. You are doing this, doing that. You can consider yourself a hustler. You can consider yourself a kind person. You can consider yourself many other things. All right, you fill in your own blanks. Now the point is, all these little, titles.
Mm.
They can be identities. So it is the ego, right? But it's not wrong, or it's not a big, you know, problem yet, really, because in the world, to function in the world, you need the ego. See, I'm going to say something very unorthodox. I
Mm-hmm.
just did it. Uh, to function in this world, you need to be a somebody. Okay, more than a somebody. Some suggest more than one, right? A few. You need to,
Okay.
you need to be a somebody. Oh, I'm a mother. Oh, I'm a millionaire. Oh, I'm an iron lady. Oh, I'm a grinder. I'm a that.
Yeah, this and that. Yeah.
So those identities are fine, though they are the basis of ego. That is what ego is, identity. But they are fine because they are necessary for you to function in this world. Let's be real, right? Practical as well. So the problem is not the ego. I have to be very clear about this. Ego by itself is it's
Something
just
inert. I
no,
mean,
no, it's monkey business. It's
mm,
monkey business. Sometimes it can be up to no good. It can be mischievous. Other times it's just monkey. It's just
mm-hmm.
monkeying around. Okay, that's what the ego is. So we in yoga we always look at the mind, especially the ego, as the monkey. We always connect these two together. The ego is the monkey. The monkey mind. We always say this. So that's fine. The only problem is when you become identified as your identity.
Mm,
Now I'm using two very similar words. But when these two come together, you identify yourself as your identity that you're playing, then it becomes a big problem. Now you have become the ego. If you have ego, just for certain functionality of work and social context to function in this world. Great. That would be great if you consciously use your ego, so called your ego, your identity. That's fine. At a certain function, I have to function as I'm the CEO of this company. I have to act like it, walk like it. But at home, if you're still the CEO of the company, then it's gonna be terrible, right? So you get what I mean? Like at certain
Yeah.
occasions and certain time space, you have to act upon accordingly as your title, position, status, etc. That's fine. But the moment you become married to it, you become identified as it.
When
Oof.
it becomes you and
You think it is
who
you.
you
You think you
are.
are that. It's gone. Then it will become a big menace.
So how do we find a balance?
No, no, it's not balance.
Uh-huh.
Balance means what? 50-50. It's not balance. Whatever roles you're playing in this world, the outer world, your job, your family, this one, your relationship status. I'm a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a this, whatever your accolades, your titles, your identities, even your personality in this world. Understand very clearly, see it so clearly that they are just parts of the mind, right? They are just parts of the mind. And you can never be the mind. And you are not the mind. We've gone through this.
Yeah.
So, very quickly, to bring our audience back here, what we're talking about, why you are never the mind or not the mind, is because simply, where does the mind come from? We were talking about this earlier. Mind is just nurture. 100%, I said. Everything of the mind comes from nurture this lifetime. So, whatever you saw, you heard, you smelled, you tasted, you touched throughout the years, throughout the decades, mostly unconsciously, everything gets absorbed. Terabytes of information per second gets stored, rearranged, stored. Mostly not properly rearranged, but I'll still use the word rearrange and stored and organize and a bit of that as your unconscious and subconscious mind. So what you call as the mind is just a collection of old data, information, past accumulation that you have collected from the five senses through your interaction with the world. Because you have gone to a certain school, you were born under a certain parentage, you were raised under a certain heritage, you were exposed to a certain media, right? All those different factors. The way your babysitter treated you, the way your best friend cheated on you, the way this and that, those life experiences, right? Everything that happened to you, it forms the mind. So the mind is just a collection of impressions that you have gathered from the world.
Hmm.
So if the mind is something that you have collected and gathered from the world, how can it be you? It belongs to you. No question about it. You're the owner. Please take ownership, right? But it cannot be you. So
Hmm.
what belongs to you can be yours, cannot be you. That's why we're very clear about this, that the mind is something that that you take ownership of, that you work with, that you use, but it is not you.
Hmm.
So the problem with the world at large is we think we are the mind. We believe we are the mind. We identify ourselves as the mind, as the identities that we play, the roles that we play. And that's why ego has been so much reinforced.
Hmm.
That's the problem with the world.
Earlier you mentioned a few words: identities, titles, labels, roles, right? So basically, all of these things are mental constructs, right? Like things that we make up in our minds or things that we have accumulated or gathered from the world around us, from our environment, upbringing, things that we learn or influenced by, right? So I'm just curious to know, how do we differentiate mental constructs from truth?
Okay. I'm glad you asked this.
How do we differentiate the two?
Okay. So the yogis have a way to simplify this. Okay. But it's not an oversimplification because it's deep. It's a deep simplification. Okay. To help you understand this. They just said everything in this world is Maya.
Mm.
Everything in this world is Maya. Now, I know people who will irresponsibly, you know, take this out of context, and for whatever nonsense that they are going through, and for whatever nonsense that they're giving out to the world, they're putting out to the world, maybe the words, maybe their actions, maybe their behavior, whatever, they'll just say it's Maya.
What's Maya?
Maya means illusion.
Mm.
So a lot of irresponsible people may take this, and they have done it like this. This is this is terrible. This is, of course, we have, now that we look back in retrospect, we know genocide, massacre, all this cruelty and evil has been done in the name of that symbol, in the name of what is represented by that symbol. But that symbol actually, swastika, was all about peace, and all encompassing peace, a four directional peace. That's what the symbol is. But look at it, it became war. So I'm
Mm.
saying we are very good at taking something and taking out of context. Okay, so when I say this is all Maya, or the yogis say this is all Maya, now someone else who is unlearned and you know irresponsible, they'll just say, yeah, this is all Maya, and they'll start to do all nonsense. They'll make a hell out of earth and trying to claim wanting to go to heaven. So no, don't take it like this. When I say this is all Maya, it's only because, not that the trees are not real, not that the sky is not real, not that reality is not real, not that the whole creation is not real. No, no. When we say this is all Maya, it's because whatever you perceive from the five senses, no matter how great your five senses are, whatever you concoct in your mind, it is not real. We are saying, as long as you believe, you think, you identify as the mind, and your experience with the world or of the world is coming from only the mind, then it cannot be real. It will be illusory, Maya. You understand? It doesn't mean you're not
Mm.
real. It doesn't mean your pet dog is not real. It doesn't mean this or that is not real. When we say
Yeah.
Maya, it is only because it's coming from your limited perception of the
Yeah.
mind, your limitations of the mind, that which renders it unreal. See, do you notice when you look up into the night sky, pick the brightest star that you can see, right? A star is a sun.
Mm.
When you look at the sun, which is a star,
At night.
at night, yes, just to be clear, it's easily millions of miles apart.
Mm-hmm.
The number may be greater than that, but easily millions of miles apart. So, as light from the sun, which is a star, comes into your eyes, your periphery, right, and you process it, the moment it comes in, it has already taken some easily hundreds of thousands of light years, perhaps a million light years, perhaps. So there is a slim chance, just saying, there is a slim chance that the star is no longer the same star you're seeing, even if you're looking through a
Mm.
telescope.
Yeah, in that
Okay,
sense, yeah.
it could no longer be there already. Maybe a million years ago it has perished. What you're seeing is the remnants of a million years ago. You understand?
Mm. Mm.
I'm just nothing wrong about still seeing a dead star, but you're seeing something that does not exist already,
Mm.
probably. Or even if it exists, maybe its shape or size is already different. But you're seeing, and you're saying, no, I'm seeing it's there. You point it there, but it's obviously not there. It's already maybe there. You understand?
Mm.
So, like this, whatever that is coming from your five senses, in yoga, we always say it's unreliable. You can hone your senses, and one way to train the mind is to definitely hone the senses. But the other way to train the mind, just to insert this bit, it's called something called dharana,
Mm-hmm.
which is concentration, which is to hone your senses, really just focus. Five senses, focus on something, single pointed attention. That's one way to train the mind and to elevate consciousness, which will come later, right? But the other way also to train the mind is to withdraw the senses completely. We call pratyahara, which means you withdraw your five senses and you put it inward. You put it into the outer world. Instead, you direct your five senses to the outer world. Now you just shift it back inwards towards what we call as yourself or within this inner world, you shift your five senses to the inner world. You may have heard of the third eye and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So the third eye is not to, for context, it's not to see ghosts, spirits,
Mm-hmm.
or demons, devils, not even deities, gods. If you can see them, it's a different story. It's good. Maybe good. Okay. But the third eye is to see your inner reality, your inner world, the truth of who you are, what life is. So that's what pratyahara is as a yogic pathway to turn the five senses inward. So I'm just giving bits and pieces here, not the full story. But if the mind has to be trained, has to be, first thing is you put it under a rein, under a leash. Okay?
Mm.
You have to become the master of the mind. Because for as long as you're not the master of your mind will wreak havoc. Just a matter of time. According to the environment in which you live in, according to the stimulus which the mind is presented with, which we call triggers, it's just a matter of time. Once a few triggers come together, the mind will wreak havoc.
Mm.
That's where all the mental health, illnesses, diseases come by.
Yeah. I think this is a good place for us to explore more about how can we fully utilize our minds. As you mentioned earlier, how can we master our minds rather than being enslaved by it, right? How can we be in control of our minds rather than being controlled by it? And you mentioned a few things earlier. You mentioned dharana and pratyahara.
Pratyahara.
Yeah. So are they, maybe you can elaborate more on that, or are there any more ways or tips that one can do to not make our minds a burden, but fully utilize them to our benefit?
So see, these are just two of the eight limbs of yoga, right? Which I'm not going to talk about it now,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very potent and powerful paths by themselves. Pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of senses, and dharana, which is single pointed focus. And most people, trust me, that I think there's sufficient research on this. You can find it. Most people cannot hold their five senses onto something, which means totally present and involved and immersed into something. It could be an object, it could be an art, it could be whatever they're doing, whatever it is, or it could be an idea or an image that they're holding in their mind, whatever it is concerning the mind. Most people cannot hold that idea, okay, for more than 5 seconds.
Five
Generally,
seconds.
5 seconds,
Lesser
even.
than a goldfish
No,
attention
that's
span.
memory. Yeah.
Oh.
So, I wish it's a myth, okay? But no, I'm saying attention span, not memory. I'm saying
Mm.
attention span, but total attention span. Most people cannot hold it for more than 5 seconds. You'll be surprised, like, wait, I can do it in 5 seconds? Well, if you can, if I were to extend the number a little bit, it's still by a very,
Small margin.
a small safe margin, 5 minutes. Now, 99% of people cannot do it. Even the research is telling 5 seconds. I'm gonna, give us some leeway. Just say 5 minutes. Hold this for 5 minutes. Definitely, 99% of people cannot do it. This is how untrained and unrefined the mind has been. Okay, we've done a lot of things with the mind. We've done a lot of calculus, arithmetic. We've done a lot of memorization. We've done a lot of, specific skill sets with the mind. But the fundamental training with the mind we've not done, which is honing the five senses, and when it's time, withdrawing the five senses. So the mind is, in yoga, we say the mind is like a sword. I did say the mind is like a monkey earlier, right? The
Mm-hmm.
mind is also like a sword. Now, what are the qualities of a sword? A sword is very cutting, very sharp.
Mm.
Now, given a choice rather, would you want a sharp sword, a sharp blade, or a dull blade?
A sharp blade.
It's a no-brainer. You would
Yeah.
choose it. Is it no-brainer?
Yeah.
Okay. See, the problem with a sharp blade is the sharper the blade, the more dangerous it becomes as a tool, as an instrument. The sharper a blade, the more it could cause you harm, right? So if your blade is very sharp, the sharpness of the blade is whatever it touches, it slices. If your blade is that sharp, the prerequisite is you have to have a steady hand. The hand that is holding the blade, the hand that is using and commanding the blade, it has to be so sharp, so steady, right? So precise. So why is the mind a blade? Because whatever it sees, whatever it hears, whatever it touches, it tastes and it smells, whatever it perceives, it wants to dissect it. Like, you know, in school when we studied science, to know a frog, we dissect a frog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nowadays they're a bit more humane. We use artificial stuff, but those days we dissect a frog.
Yeah.
I think they still do, right?
Frog or a white mice.
Yeah. Do they still
Yeah.
do it in medical school?
Yeah. I mean, medical school was 7 years ago. Yeah, they did.
Or like
I'm not sure about
did
now
they
though.
dissect a living?
A living human being, an animal. Yeah, we have
Wait,
to
a
for.
living human being.
I mean, not a living human. I'm sorry. Did I say living human? But a human being.
Okay.
I
No, I
mean,
said the word living.
cadaver. Yeah, cadaver. Yeah,
Oh, damn. Okay.
yeah. For
See?
anatomy. Yeah.
So to learn something, to investigate something, the mind is very investigative. To learn something, it will have to dissect it. So the mind is like a blade. See, if today, Crystal, if I want to know you as a being to another being, if I want to know you, all I can do is dissect you. That's not good, right? That was sound.
Figuratively.
No, that's not good. Yeah, that would sound murderous. Okay, you know what I mean?
Not literally. Yeah.
So the mind is very useful in certain aspects, but what's more important to note here is the hand that is holding the mind, the blade, right? The mind is akin to a blade. The hand that is holding it must be very strong, balanced, steady, unshakable. Now, what is this hand that is holding the mind? As the analogy goes, you should be holding your mind. Not let it just run wild.
How
right?
can we do that then? How can we hold the mind steadily?
So first and foremost, you have to establish this one truth. Just now you were asking me how do I, mental construct versus truth.
Yeah.
Now this one truth, that I am not the mind. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am not my beliefs. My beliefs, my thoughts, my emotions, they are there to help me navigate through this world. They are there to serve a purpose. Okay, we're not here to neglect them as well or negate them, but they should not define me and they are definitely not me. That much should be made clear. This foundational truth must be first established that I am not my mind, I am not my thoughts. This much. Because once you establish this, there's a steadiness in the hand that is holding the knife, which is the mind. Now, you have to practice it. You have to practice it. If you go by the way of the sword or the way of martial arts, for example, or whatever, sharp weapon for that matter, practice, practice, practice. The same knife that can dissect a person, that can cut a person, that can harm a person, that can chop a person down, can also save lives.
Are there any practices that we can start doing?
Yeah, I'm giving you ideas, right? Let's start with ideas. So the same knife that you use for those, like I said, whatever, acts of cruelty and harm, you can use it to save lives. If you're a chef, you can use it to prep up a meal. If you are a surgeon, you can use a simple scalpel to save lives, to remove a tumor. So like this, the same mind, this human mind is so fantastic, so phenomenal, so miraculous to the extent that if you know how to use it, it can be like a spaceship. Earlier I mentioned, it can be a knife that you use to save lives. It can be a tool for transformation of your own life. Okay. Earlier you were asking me like, are there any practical tools, tips, ways?
Yeah.
I'll start this with a joke. Can I share a joke with you?
Yeah, sure. Please.
So there were three people, friends, very good friends, stranded on an island. It always happens in a joke. And after days of, searching the island, they finally came upon a magical looking lamp. Lo and behold, as they wrap this magical lamp, something came up, a genie no less. So the genie said, since you have found me and released me, I will grant you 3 wishes. They were all very excited, very happy. So the first person thought very easily. She didn't take too much time. She said, I want a speedboat so that I can get off this island.
Okay.
With a snap of a finger, a speedboat came. And she hopped on a speedboat, bid farewell to her friends, and off she went. Now it's the second person's turn. He thought long and hard. He said, I don't want a speedboat. I don't know how to maneuver a boat. I just want to get home. Please send me home. With a snap of a finger. Now he appeared magically in his living room, thousands of miles apart. Now it's down to the last guy. Our guy didn't think long and hard. He was very spontaneous, very fast. He knows I know what I want already. I've already, even with them around, I've been feeling this. But now with them not around, I'm feeling intensely lonely. I wish my friends were back.
Oh dear.
So this is the human predicament, Crystal.
We all have that one friend, huh?
No, this is the that as well. No, this is the human predicament. The human mind can conjure up the most amazing things, the most wondrous things, the most beneficial things that serves a better purpose, towards humanity, or towards humanity's ultimate good. The mind can do all sorts of crazy things. We have invented penicillin, we have invented painkillers, we've invented devices that can ease our communication thousands of miles apart. We have done crazy things, amazing things. But we can also be like the last guy. I'm lonely. I want my friends back. You know what I mean? We can also cause much havoc. So what I'm trying to say with this joke is it all boils down to how you use your mind. And don't be used by it. So you're asking for practical tips. I'm giving you that. Upon establishing that you are not the mind, not your thoughts, learn how to use it. Practice it every day. How to use your mind. So consciousness is very important here, because without consciousness, obviously, you would be devoured and consumed and used by the mind, right? Enslaved, as you were saying it. So consciousness is the fundamental prerequisite. Even the fact that, right, the moment, as soon as you are conscious that you are not the mind, this is where there is already a raise in consciousness, an elevation in consciousness. So that's one. The other thing is become increasingly more aware of your thoughts. Now, not just the negative ones, all thoughts in general, but a good place to start would be the negative thoughts. Okay, but all thoughts in general, right? Especially good thoughts as well later on. Why? Why good thoughts? Well, when you have a lot of good thoughts, can you be aware of them? Aware doesn't mean you have to change them, you have to stop them. No, just be aware. Can you be aware? All thoughts. Okay, but starting with the bad thoughts, the negative thoughts. See, Buddha said this: what you think, you become. What you think, you become. And we are all using this quote today, somehow very proud about it. But this was one line out of a whole series of conversations he was having with his disciple. Now, I'll tell you the other less known line. And I'm paraphrasing in my own words, okay? Not exactly word for word. But what you don't think, or rather, when you don't think, you unbecome. But we only catch the first part because it's conveniently applicable to most of us, modern humans. What we think we become, so we think great thoughts, we become great. That's the gist of it. But what we don't think, or more precisely, when we don't think, we unbecome. And that is Buddha's bigger message, which is totally lost in the translation and in the message today. So when you are not using the mind, put it down. Just like the sword or the blade. When you're not using the blade, keep it in the sheath. Don't as a samurai or a swordsman, you don't hold the blade all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're not using it, keep it back down. So like this, when you're not using the mind, keep it back down. When you keep it back down, this is where spirituality is, where spirituality dwells. The word unbecome means you are not becoming anybody. You're not so-called somebody. You're playing the role as per required by society. Just now we were talking about the different identities or ego, as we call it. You're playing it. You're not played by it. You're playing the role. You're not played by the role. You understand?
Yeah.
So now when you're not this or that role on your own, by your own, say, time and space, put your mind down. When you keep your mind down, what are you? You're not crystal. When you keep your body and your mind down, you're not crystal. Crystal is a name given to you by your parents so that you can function in society, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But when you are just on your own, consciously, meditatively, freely, on your own, keep the mind down. You're not even crystal. Okay, for what matters. Later you'll pick it back up, don't worry. You're not all your identities. You're not your personalities, ENFJ, all those nonsense, right? You're not extroverted, this, that. You are not all those things. So I think that's a practical tip that anyone can apply this. Use your mind. Don't be used by your mind. You don't even try to control your mind, because the more you control your mind, the more it resists control. It will fight back. If I ask you, don't think of a pink elephant or a blue capybara. Immediately a blue capybara comes up. So that's the nature of the mind. The more you ask it not to do this, it will do something else in return, in retaliation. So you don't resist the mind. Don't try to control the mind. Just knowing that you are not the mind, allowing it to do its own monkey business. Okay, but continuously hone it, refine it, work on it, program it, or reprogram it rather. And that's how you be in control.
So you're saying we cannot control the mind,
You shouldn't.
and we shouldn't control.
Right. The more you try to control the mind, most people think, oh, yogis are beings who control their mind. No, they are those who are in control of their mind. To control and to be in control are two different things. One is a verb, an action. One is you are in a state of control. So when you're in a state of meditation, you're in a state of consciousness, you're in a state of deep love, for example, you are not in the mind. When you're not living in the mind, you're not controlled by the mind. And you don't even have to control the mind. The mind will settle down by itself.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. Beautiful conversation. And to everyone who's listening, who's tuning in, let us know in the comments below in what way has this conversation been impactful to you. What are some of your big key takeaways, and what are some of the changes that you like to start making in your life right now? And if you find this episode or this podcast valuable, be sure to share it with your loved ones, your friends, or anyone that you know, so that they might benefit from it as well. And be sure to catch us at Awaken Soul Podcast. We're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and wherever podcasts are available. Also follow us at our social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for playing your part in this great tapestry of life. Again, I've been your co-host, Dr. Crystal Asong.
And I've been your co-host as well, Dennis DeVos, signing off.
And until next time, we'll see you in next one.
Thank
Namaskaram.
you. Amazing. Namaskaram.